Be here and be a part of Men of Quality. I kind of try to think of myself as a man of quality. Can anybody explain what quality means, like the definition of quality? Go ahead.
Like you show respect and you're like a model for other people.
Okay, that's a role model, but quality, like the definition of quality. Pieces of what?
Pieces of the quality. Pieces of what was learned to be like.
Okay. Anybody else? One more stab at quality. Okay, quality is something that's really worth something. Quantity is a lot of something. So you can have a lot of bubble gum, that's quantity. But you can have one piece of steak, that's quality. So basically somebody's pouring into you goodness, quality. A bunch of good comes out. So that's a part of this program that Ms. Johnson is bringing to you guys, to have men such as myself come and speak to you about society and life and social ills that plague our community. Again, my name is Jay Alexander. For those that don't know, I'm a barber by trade. I've been a barber for 32 years, and my passion is actually just cutting hair and communicating with the youth behind the chair. I run a program called Thoughts Out Loud, Mental Health and Violence Prevention Barbershop, and that barbershop is located now in 3 different schools in C.U.T.S. We operate out of Minor Daniels. We operate out of Homestead Academy North. We also operate out of Hudson Middle School. A lot of the schools that we go to, we try to reach out to children, young men that are operating from a deficit. I choose not to say words like impoverished, underprivileged. I'd rather use the word deficit. And when y'all get an opportunity to find out what deficit means, just hold that, because that's where we want to operate from, a deficit, so we can create assets. So that's what we're doing here. The program, again, is in different schools. I bring in healing chairs, which I like to call healing chairs. They're barber chairs, but I bring them into the schools, and we identify students that possibly need grooming services and or conversations because of their behavior and or the way they act or interact in school. So they get an opportunity to talk to me because I actually want youth to be able to speak. There used to be a time when I was growing up, and Ms. Jam growing up, Ms. Johnson, was growing up, there used to be a time where children were seen and not heard. Unfortunately, in today's society, children need to be seen and heard, because a lot of times when we hide children away, or ostracize them, I don't pay any attention to them, they have a lot of things bottled up inside of them that make them go out and create violence. So that's the goal, is to prevent violence. Young man, if you don't mind, please. Thank you. So the goal is to prevent violence by having these type of conversations and communicating with each other. I have 2 pieces that I'm gonna do. I brought a TED Talk from a young man that's y'all's age. Oftentimes, when you hear from adults, it seems like we're getting on your nerves. It seems like we're talking down to you. It seems like we always want to correct you. Is that not true? Does anybody feel like that in here when you talk to adults? By show of hands, does anybody feel like it? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. How many of y'all feel like when you talk to adults, it always seems like we talking down, we want to correct you? Okay, well, in this situation, I'm gonna allow y'all to hear it from one of your peers. And then I'm gonna do my own small little TED Talk to give you an opportunity of knowing, again, who I am and what I do. But I want to present this TED Talk again, and I want y'all to pay attention to this, please. Like,
It was on a Monday morning in March when I woke up to take my middle school's FSA, or the Florida Standards Assessment, a test that, for most kids, was of utmost importance, given that it determines grade retention and class placement for the rest of the year. But I couldn't have cared less. After all, in just the week before, I had no electricity at home, hadn't eaten that entire day, and my close friend Jamie had just been hospitalized as a result of a shooting caused by gang violence. So with all of the...
how many people in this, and you can be vulnerable. Like, this is what I do. Like, the only way to reach your issues is to actually find solutions to the issues. So, vulnerability is one of the most important pieces we can ever be as men. Vulnerability is one of the most important pieces we can ever be as men. Do anybody know what vulnerability is? Or being vulnerable?
Being open to anything.
Bingo, absolutely. So, with what he just said, in taking an assessment test, how many of y'all in this classroom right now have witnessed no food or lack of electricity prior to a day before or 2 days before taking an exam? Has anybody faced that kind of adversity, that kind of poverty? Okay, if nobody's honest in here and it never happened, that's good that it didn't happen. But if it has happened and nobody wants to be vulnerable, what he's saying is how people approach testing and things like that in school. They have a lot of outside situations that go on inside of them that keep them from concentrating or doing what it is necessary to pay attention or have retention.
All of these external circumstances clashing in my life, how on earth could I possibly do well on an exam? The answer to that question was clearly evident in my scores, which, as you can probably guess, were failing, resulting in me being placed in all remedial classes. But even then, it didn't matter to me, because I had even bigger problems, from taking care of family members to paying the bills that I had to face at home. However, I wasn't alone in my plight. You see, my same story is true for millions of other African American youth, and in their communities, this is business as usual. Problems like crime, violence, and drugs rage on, while our students suffer the consequences, leading to shocking yet predictable statistics, like the fact that only 16% of African American youth will be proficient in reading by the time they reach high school. And in many instances, by the time we find out this is the case, it is far too late to reverse the damage that has already been done to them by our broken schools. Damages that, if you were to visit my high school, you would see surrounding you at every corner, in the form of students like DJ, who barely maintained a 2.0 average, or my friend Kyle, who had already dropped out, giving up on any hopes of graduation. What's happening here is that these kids realize they don't have any future academically, and have come to the grim understanding that their prospects of getting an education followed by a decent job are so slim, they must look to crime as an alternative to providing for themselves and their families. And it all starts with one thing: literacy. You see, it doesn't take a college degree to sell drugs. All you need is desperation and a desire to make a quick buck, incentivizing these already poor, disadvantaged minority teens to partake in criminal activity, landing them in juvenile court. So how do I know all of this? Because I was almost one of them. And in my experience, one of the worst things about this cycle is how we oftentimes end up blaming kids, the people who we should be trying to help, for problems like these that are perpetuated by our broken schools. Attributing the misfortune of students like my friend Jamie to the ghetto music he listened to, the poor parenting he may have received, or just blatant stereotypes, like the notion that black youth are inherently bad. However, I knew that this was simply not the case. Kendrick Lamar, Jamie's favorite artist, wasn't a bad person. He simply used music as a means of expressing the damaged, crime-ridden childhood he had experienced, something many African American youth like myself can relate to. Jamie's mother, by all means, wanted to give him an education, but just didn't have the resources to do so. And finally, Jamie wasn't a bad kid, something which I am sure all of his teachers would agree with. However, what was truly bad were the things we had no control over, like the glaring educational inequality that existed in the schools we went to, what little instruction we received, much of which was beyond subpar, and the lack of resources that existed for us to be able to do well, even if we could receive a quality education. For me, this was internet access, something that was required for me to even remotely begin working on most assignments, particularly my English class's final project that consisted of a 20-slide long presentation. But judging by how my family couldn't afford to pay for electricity, let alone a computer, there was...
Now, right here, I'm gonna stop it real quick. He's getting ready to explain how he's gonna go the extra mile to get his work done, based on obstacles, challenges in his way. So with that being said, just look at how he overcame this particular obstacle. Again, real quick, can anybody say what he's facing? He's got to do a 20-page report in English, but what is one of the things he's facing?
He doesn't have a computer at home.
No internet.
No electricity.
All those components make him feel like he's not going to be able to achieve. How many of y'all being vulnerable today in now can say y'all face no electricity or no internet or even no computer? So all y'all have that at home? Everybody has it now? But majority of people may, because it's now more susceptible to have, but a lot of people don't have access to that. So watch what, this is a kid, y'all. This is y'all with something inside him. Something inside of him that he wants to go further.
There was no way I was going to turn in an entire PowerPoint by the next day. When I sprinted over to the library to work on it, it was closed. When I raced to the community center, they turned me down almost instantly. And when I went from door to door, asking all of my friends and neighbors, not one of them had a computer for me to use. It was at that point that, having exhausted all of my options and breath, I should have just given up, knowing that I had tried my best, but nevertheless feeling defeated. Or at least, that is, until there was this one other idea that I had to try. Refusing to allow my circumstances to deter me, I went to extreme lengths, walking all the way to Best Buy, which was miles away from my house, in the middle of the night, just to fulfill my promise to finish that PowerPoint. And this seemed like a pretty good idea at the time, until it started raining. So, soaked and dripping wet I arrived, and despite all of the confused stares I received, somehow managed to finish that PowerPoint. And that is the story of one of the very first A's that I had ever gotten. Now, while this small anecdote may be shocking to you, this is sadly something most young people from my neighborhood are all too familiar with. However, when placed in the same circumstances, many of them wouldn't, or even couldn't have gone to this extent for a mere letter grade, because they have even bigger problems to deal with. And contrary to most teachers' belief, they do not have the same 24 hours in a day to do what I did. From having to take their time to care for younger siblings, to working to support their families, this concept that everyone has the same 24 hours is quickly eaten up by the challenges of the real world. And it is obstacles like these, from the absence of support services in schools, to the lack of resources like internet access in minority communities, which act as the mechanism by which African American youth are flushed down the school-to-prison pipeline. And while it is clear we must address all of these other problems as well, what is the one thing we can start doing now to solve them all? Well, judging by how 85% of incarcerated African American youth cannot read, literacy, something that is determined at as early as 3rd grade, is clearly the root cause of the problem. And we can begin to address it by treating it like a leak which we must patch as early as possible if we ever hope to prevent these kids from reaching our juvenile justice system. For the longer we wait and allow it to continue to drip, the further our most at-risk students fall behind and the more prone they are to crime. Intervention of this kind is important because in many cases, once these kids reach the back of that police car, it is that much harder to get them out, with recidivism rates reaching over 50% for first-time offenders. Yet this is where most resources in our juvenile justice system are focused, something that is reflective of how we are only willing to invest in these kids when the problem arises. I say this because I wasn't always the person you see on this stage today, and there was someone who intervened in my own life and helped fix my literary leak before I could have ever reached that point. That person was Miss Martini, my middle school teacher. And when I first met her,
Middle school teacher. So somebody in here, one of these teachers in this room, and even Miss Johnson that just left, those are some people that are pouring into y'all, caring for y'all. Like, they wouldn't have created this program or this classroom or this structure if they wasn't trying to prevent you guys from going out participating in wrongdoing in society. So hence the reason this program is created, and it started in middle school for this young man. And for me to be able to come here to a middle school and be able to explain this to y'all and provide this information from his own words as a youth, speaking to y'all, this is peer-on-peer conversation. Again, remember I told you oftentimes, y'all get tired of hearing adults. But it's no disrespect, but respectfully, you get tired of hearing the adults talk to you. So, here it is out of the mouths of babes. Children are speaking to you. A youth is speaking to you. Your own peers are speaking to you. The same way the same guy would say, let's go do something wrong. It's still peer pressure. Let's do something right. It's peer pressure. Let's do something right. Let's invest in our youth that are doing right versus always trying to invest in the youth who are downtrodden. Although I do that work and help the youth that are downtrodden and going through a deficit, but the goal is to really invest in the kids who are really doing right. If you're on the right track, that means society can get better because you're doing what's right. If you're on the wrong track and you gotta have somebody always sitting around mentoring you, then that's taken away from the production of society. I gotta keep going back, I gotta keep pouring in. I gotta keep pouring in. When you got people doing well. So stay doing right so we can invest in the right. There's a lot out here for us to get into to do wrong. It's easy to do wrong, y'all. At the end of the day, it's easy to do wrong. It's easy to cop a gun. It's easy to cuss out parents. It's easy to smoke weed. It's easy. But the hard piece is rejecting that. That's the hard piece, telling your homeboy that you ain't gonna go that route. And it's two other homeboys, so now you got three peer pressures. What are you gonna do? What's gonna separate you? You gonna be the follower, you gonna be the leader. But in order to be a good leader, you do have to be a good follower though. But that don't mean keep following blindly either. 3 minutes, y'all.
better, I was doing poorly in even the remedial classes I was placed in, as a result of my unprecedentedly low test scores. But despite this, she never gave up on me, forcing me to go to my school's weekly tutoring sessions and constantly monitoring my grades via surprise checks that I hated. Despite our love-hate relationship, though, this was the first time I ever felt like a teacher actually cared about me and had understood the circumstances I had been through without immediately labeling me with stereotypes, like that I was lazy or had poor time management skills without context, when, in reality, there was so much more to the story. And we set a high goal. She didn't want to see me with just one A on a single assignment. She wanted to see me with a 4.0 GPA. When I first heard this, I knew there was absolutely no way this was going to happen. And after going home that day, I went right back to slacking off. This was the case for pretty much the entire week, until one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in my life helped motivate me to want to get there. A few months earlier, I had applied to serve as an advisor to Harvard's Graduate School of Education on a whim. Maybe it was because the name sounded cool, or just since I had nothing better to do. No matter the reason, the day I received that letter of acceptance, something sparked inside of me and made me realize that perhaps I was capable of achieving educational excellence. After all, they had selected me of all people, and that maybe my personal experiences made me an even better candidate to raise awareness for this issue. My time there changed me, and is what made me first think about all of the disparities that exist in our education system now, something that was reflected in my own life as well. So, for my Youth Advisory Board project, my classmates and I worked to found Hear the Youth, an organization that works to provide other students like ourselves the same opportunities I had to have my voice heard in my school system. Now, we have met with Chartwells to discuss hunger in schools. 2 of our teams are the only young people to